Hello, welcome to Small Group. We are continuing our series at church called Law and Gospel. Today we talked about the title, the subject of, what is a miracle? What is a miracle? We looked at John chapter 6, and we looked at the story of Jesus feeding the 5,000 with just 5 loaves and 2 fish. And we drew from that narrative in an effort to answer the question, what is a miracle? So basically, we talked about how if we look at that passage and then look at the more detailed explanation that the Apostle Paul gives in 1 Corinthians chapter 12, 1 through 10, we come away with the idea that the answer to the question of what is a miracle goes something like this. A miracle is an act of love from God that first takes place in heaven and then happens on earth. An act of love from God, an act of God's love that first happens in heaven and then on earth. We say that because there seems to be a pattern in Scripture, especially in the ministry of Jesus, where first God imparts a gift of faith, a resident knowing, a seeing ahead of time of something that God's doing in heaven, or as Jesus put it, the Son, speaking of himself, can do nothing except what he sees the Father doing. And that's in the previous chapter. So Jesus, he has all these people in front of him, 5,000, and that's just the men. And he says to Philip, well, how are we going to feed these people? And he's looking for something from Philip that indicates concern, that indicates love, but he doesn't get it. But it says very specifically that Jesus already knew what he was going to do. So you see, that's the gift of faith that Paul talks about. That's God already telling him. So he has this resident assurance. He knows what's going to happen. And he knows that he just needs to bring it to pass on earth. So Philip says, well, we don't have enough money. And even if we had some money, it wouldn't even feed these people a little bit. And then Andrew brings a little boy who basically gives the food that he has, his lunch or probably his food for the day, because barley was the food of the poor people and for domesticated animals. And he said, well, this little boy has five loaves and 2 fish, and the boy's offering it to Jesus. So the one who gives us our example is this little boy. He shows the love of God in his heart. He loves Jesus because he made his way forward in the crowd to listen to what Jesus had to say. He listened to what Jesus wanted to do, and then he said to himself, well, it's not much, but I want to help him do it. Whatever he wants to do, I want to help him do it, because if he cares about those people, then I care about those people. And so from that we get this beautiful story of how Jesus Christ, the Messiah, the Son of God, basically moves a mountain. He does the impossible. And that's what we talked about. So I encourage you to get the CD, the audio CD, and I encourage you to look at to compare this 6th chapter of John with the portion in 1 Corinthians. And I think you'll see that if we follow the example of this little boy, that I believe God is wanting to do miracles through us. Again, a miracle being defined as something that first happens in heaven out of the love of God. An act of love from God happens in heaven, and then he communicates to his people on earth of what he's doing, and then his people on earth bring it to pass and move that mountain. God bless you. That's the lesson. We will see you next Sunday.